Hello, founders and investors. Welcome back to Next Round Ready. I'm your host, Chris. Today we have special guest Jasper from the Founders GTM. Jasper, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Chris.
So, what got you into this industry of serving founders in this way?
So I was working in the startup ecosystem of Barcelona, and I met a lot of founders there in tech. And I noticed they were actually in an early stage of the company or early stage startups. They hadn't completely achieved a solution market fit yet. And I decided to actually help them go to markets. What I found was that they hired some marketing people. They love the product. Of course, most of them, they all fall in love with their own product.
Yeah.
But what was lacking is a proper sales strategy. And most of them, they're so tech focused that they needed some insights there, because the issue was they lacked the understanding that you actually have to start with a customer to keep on developing your product. And there, on the job, I just learned like how to actually find a proper ideal customer profile, also understand really well what are their pains, and then you know actually how to bring your solution to market based on those pains, adapt your product to it, and basically helping them in this way deliver proper message at the right time to the right person in the market. And I grew into this role more as an independent advisor and consultant over the years.
Okay.
So that's like, in a nutshell, my answer to your question.
Okay. And I want to get a little tactical in this conversation because I see so many different go to market specialists out there, man. Like every event I go to for founders, there's at
Mhm.
least one go to market specialist in the room. At least one. Like it's almost like it's mandatory. So, what
Mhm.
makes your process different?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very crowded industry. Often people, they call themselves go-to-market strategists, just because they read a lot about it. They can talk really well about it, but they haven't really worked. A lot of them haven't really cannot really back up what they claim by results or specific case studies, right? I think what you really need to look out for as a founder before working with someone like that is that this person can actually show you client testimonials and explain exactly in a very detailed manner what they did, how what they did actually improved results in a specific industry, a specific kind of buyer persona. And I think we go to market as well. There's nowadays a lot of emphasis on tools and stack, right? So I think what really defines success nowadays and what separates the good from the great here is that you can actually build a go-to-market motion on a very strong strategic foundation, a very good understanding of sales, also good understanding of marketing, of distribution in general. So in order for that, you start with strategy, you start with the foundations, and then you build a tech stack on top of the foundations, and not the other way
Mm.
around. Because if you start with the tools and the technology, yeah, you're just building a house without a
And you don't,
foundation.
yeah, and I've thought about that because now with AI, I think AI is kind of for people in our spaces like this. I think it is very, very useful. It's very important because it's like for me, it saves me a ton of time for just running my show.
Mhm.
So for you, what do you say to the founders who tell you like, nah, I don't need a strategist. I can just get my strategy from AI. I can get my tools from AI. I can do everything with AI because I'm pretty sure you've
Mhm.
heard that from founders that they can essentially replace you with a machine.
Yeah, you totally you nailed it there, Chris, because we've seen it actually, especially in the past year in 2025. Models, they have become smarter and smarter. If you look now back to ChatGPT 3.5, it's just a joke for what you can do, for instance, with Gemini 3 Pro. I'm
Yeah.
even like baffled by it. I know the strategy, but sometimes, of course, I am curious about what is the AI, the LLM, going to tell me about the strategy, and I'm testing it, and I've been more and more impressed. So totally, the demand has lowered. Like the demand has decreased a lot, because I think we're in a space right now where founders are experimenting themselves a lot with LLMs. They're asking them questions. How should I approach my sales? What should be a good sales strategy for me? And I think to some degree that evolution is great because at least they have some first good understanding about what direction they should go into. Now, the problem there is it's still just theory, right? Because you're
Yeah,
not talking to a person who's actually done it in real life and practice. And theory is always sounds smoother than the hard reality. Okay, so that's the difference between working with a person who has can back up. Again, we're back to client testimonials, results, and someone who can present you with your beautiful strategy, which is a good place to start from. But if you really want to make a difference, you got to work with someone who has the experience.
totally agree. Totally agree. And so, for you, what's one of the things that you're telling the founders in terms of the social marketing right now? Because I think social media doesn't have the impact it used to have. I saw an article recently that said like over half of the accounts you see online are fake, like they're bots. And it's like when you hear that, it's like, why would I, as a founder, then want to put a bunch of money or time or effort into marketing on social if half of the people I'm talking to aren't people? Like, how do you deal with that as somebody that does marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it has become harder and harder to filter that out. What happened with AI is that a lot of people that before you wouldn't hear them because they didn't know how to write properly, they didn't know or they weren't able to put their ego aside and come out there, in social media and actually get over the imposter syndrome. Now just everyone is posting on LinkedIn and they're
Mm-hmm.
just spitting, letting their LLM spit something out that they feel like, oh, this makes me look good. Let's just publish it. All I can say is that you have to be really, really, you have to do your homework. You have to do your diligence because if you cannot separate what's fake from what's real, from what's actually working to a lot of BS, especially on LinkedIn nowadays. I mean, it has become a complete skill to be able to filter it out. And I think without it, it's very easy to get misled and to go into the wrong direction. And that can cost you a lot of money because there's an
Yeah.
opportunity cost. If you're following advice from fake gurus, you can end up in a pretty nasty place. I've seen it firsthand, and I had to help them clean the shit, basically,
Uh,
start from scratch, right? So
mm.
it's a reality, and yes, it has become a new skill to separate what's fake from what's real.
Okay, so I'd love to hear your best case scenario, in terms of the clients you've worked with, the best results you've gotten from one of these startups. Because
Hmm.
my audience is founders who are building their companies. They are looking for go to market help. Some don't want to hire a full team of marketing just yet, or even a full sales team. But I think hearing from you in terms of how you've actually helped people could be really beneficial.
Of course. Recently, actually, I published a new issue on my Substack. So I'm going to guide you a little bit through it because it also explains how we did it. It's actually starting from a certain cold email strategy. It's called a three-step sequence. So let me give you a little bit of an introduction here, so you understand where it comes from. Before, most cold emails would sound something like this. The first line would be just personalization, something they found about their LinkedIn profile. I'm talking about like 5 years ago. And then you would kind of pitch your solution and ask for a call in the end. Now,
Yeah.
because volume has increased so much, cold email success has been decreasing a lot. Inboxes are more crowded than ever. Spam filters, they have to be more and more strict. So it's harder than ever to cut through the noise. I was working with a founder. He was yeah, building his fintech company, his fintech software as a service solution. Basically, what they were doing, like he had a few salespeople, and they were just keeping on sending these emails that I was just like explaining to you in the very classic structure. And when they wouldn't get a response, they would just keep on sending follow-ups. They
That's
understood a little bit.
spammy. It just it gets I get those, and it's so. After like the second one, it's like, okay, get the hint that I'm not interested. So don't
Mhm.
just keep spamming me, man. That's just so off putting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you play the volume game, which a lot of companies are still doing, you're going to get some kind of results. But we're speaking about tens of thousands of emails every month, right? So a lot of companies don't even have that big of a total addressable market. So what happened? They had like these typical. They were using this typical. It's called the AGO-GO sequence that was in the past coined by, I think it was the founder or the lead marketing person at um, Outreach.io. So he had this 12-step sequence. So there would be send one email, then a LinkedIn connection request, follow-up email, a phone call, leave voicemail, another follow-up email. I think, yeah, a lot of follow-up emails, but in the end, it just sounds like desperation. So this company, they had set up this kind of sequence. Like you get where we're going. Now, over the years, I've learned that what I think the biggest breakthrough, and it may sound ridiculous right now, but if you're looking a few years back, it wasn't that obvious. Right
Yeah,
now, if you're not delivering value upfront in your outreach, you're just not going to have success with cold email.
not at all.
People expect something from value, otherwise they don't want to going to waste your time. They're not just gonna jump on a call with you because time has become way more, attention span has gone down. So in this specific case, what we actually started setting up was a total new structure. Just to draw a little bit of a situation, they had in total maybe a reply rate in between 1 and 2%. And we will see also why reply rates are becoming a vanity metric as well. But after we actually implemented a new kind of sequence with only 3 steps, I call it the 3-step sequence, which is a very simple, has a very simple structure. We were able to triple the reply rates in the first place. So we went
Wow.
we had reply rates between 6 and 8%. But the craziest thing was that we introduced completely new methods. So the 3-step sequence works like this. Your first email, the goal of it is to trigger response because you want to optimize engagement. So the algorithms of the email service providers understand there's engagement and your outreach is actually working. If you were sending a bunch of links, for instance, in the first outreach, you have a higher
Mm-mm.
chance of going to spam. So you want to first break through in their inbox. And
Yeah.
then in the next emails, which is actually the main goal, is that you want not necessarily optimize for a reply, but you want to optimize for actions. And this is one of the cornerstones of the 3-step sequence, because in the second email and the third email, you're going to optimize for people actually engaging with an external asset. You're going to send them a link to a landing page. And with the landing page, you can track behavior of people who are interacting with the resource or assets that is valuable upfront that you're sending to the prospect,
Okay,
right?
wait. I
So
want to pause right there because I don't want to get people confused. You said you don't send links in the first email because that could possibly send you to spam. You're just focused
exactly,
on getting a response.
just the response.
And email two is where you send them that resource and that tool, so you can make sure, like, you can kind of essentially track that to know if they clicked the link or not, if they checked it out or not.
Exactly. So just to give you an example, there's a solution. It's called a page.io, double A. And what it does, it's dynamic landing page in the sense you can track exactly which prospect, because every prospect has a personal link, a landing page link, and you can track which part of the resource of the page they have dwelled most on, what have they clicked on, what have they forwarded to Slack, and so on. So in the first email, you're just going to ask for permission to send the resource if they're open to it. And then you will get your first responses, your first engagement. Maybe you'll get like a 1% reply rate or a 2% reply rate. But actually, the magic happens in the the emails that come after that. So the second email, if you don't get a response, and this is still automated, there's nothing wrong with automation, but you have to use it in a smart way. The second automated email will be in the same thread as the first email, and it will actually send the resource. So instead of just bumping the email to their top of their inbox and just basically poking them, you're going to add
Uh,
value in every step. So you're going to bring a clarification and say, look, this is the resource that I meant, and this is what it looks like. You can have a look at through this link.
okay, I got a question. What would you say are the best resources to send in that second email? Because I find that if you're sending people to a landing page, it has to be something that you know is valuable to them. And we're kind of way past that ebook stage where people just want to have a bunch of ebooks they're not going to read and they're on email lists now because of it. I feel like it has to be something else, but I'm trying to figure out what you think are the best options.
So as a provider, you have to understand your customers so well and the problems of your customers so well that you are able to create a really good, compelling offer, a free offer that you can give away, that you can deliver through email. So you have to come up with some kind of lead magnets or resources that are tied to those problems. In the end, your paid offer aligns with those free resources. So you have to start with free offers and then you go up to what you're actually selling in a later stage. So I'm going to just read an example email, first email about what it looks like in a three-step sequence. And this is an example, right? So it's not specifically for this case, but this is what I also write about. And if I, for instance, do a LinkedIn post, I make examples also. You can generate them with an LLM if you're feeding it a framework. So you can
Mm,
say, hey, first name, it seems like your team has grown pretty fast. I see three entities, two currencies, and now finance is flipping between NetSuite, Brex, and two bank portals just to see cash. So this is a very clear first relevant headline of the email,
yeah.
but then it must be problem focused. So the next sentence is that one question, what's our position today? That must still take a spreadsheet and a few Slacks to answer.
Mm,
So it's a lot of friction for this process. Then you go with actually what you're doing, and what kind of results, what the solution actually is to this problem. We made similar company fix that. Now their cash view updates hourly and month end takes 3 days instead of 10.
wow.
And then you in the end you tie everything to a compelling offer, which is your call to action, which is optimized for the prospect to take action. So it says, well, in this case, it's the first email, so it's a reply. Want me to share the configuration they used that saved them 20 hours per week? Okay. There are
Mm,
going to be a few responses, but then in the second email, it's going to look like this if they don't respond. So first, here's the configuration that I mentioned, what it actually looked like when similar companies stopped stitching bank data and payments together by hand. Their four-person team saved more than 20 hours a week just from better visibility and cleanup. So here, this is the link, and then they visit the page.
wow. And so now it's not predicated on them. I always thought that the booking the call being the first thing was just too big of an ask, you know? Like it's like I don't know you, we've never spoken before. You say you could solve my problem, but I really want to give you 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes of my time to try to sell me on this? Not immediately. Like I think we kind of rush into that sometimes. So I like this approach of sending some other resource before getting into the whole call strategy.
Actually, yeah, you nail it there again, and that's the whole idea behind it. But of course, some people they're not convinced even by the resource. As you say, you have to understand your customers so well that you come up with very good offers. But some clients, they are just not convinced. You cannot predict if this is going to be a really good resource. So you need like a bunch in your closet, right? You have an inventory of potential resources. So the last email, and it's the last one. So I always, in every framework that I teach, that I implement with founders, with founding teams, I always focus on the number 3, because for me, after 3 times, it's over. You try it, and it's also you send LinkedIn messages. We always send 3 messages and then completely stop, because your messaging should be tight enough. In the only goal of the last touch, it's not a breakup email like there used to be, like, hey, this is the last time I sent you this email,
So dramatic.
you haven't been responding, don't worry, I will leave you alone, but if you ever want to reach out to us, feel free to do so. Okay, this is over. Instead, what we did is we send a third email and with just a new offer, right? And it would sound something like this. It's very similar to the first email, but you're going to optimize for an action through a link. They're going to visit a landing page, but they're going to access a different resource. There are chances that this resource is not going to hit, but then at least you gave it a shot. But there's also a chance that it's going to hit. So you have kind of a 50% chance, let's say. So you say you're basically going to also talk about a slightly different problem, and you customize your resource, your assets to the different problem that the customer is also dealing with. So looks like your team has added new cards, at least 2 new vendors last quarter, and that's usually when approval starts slipping outside the system. A similar company found 37K without clear audit trails spread across email, Slack, and different workflows. The audit came early and it wasn't fun. We made them lock down approvals across AP cards and expenses without ripping out what worked. Now everything routes through one view and the audit file builds itself.
Wow.
So this kind of sounds, to someone who's not into a fintech space, it sounds a little bit like it's very jargon, right? But of course, these people, the list you're sending it to should be so targeted that these people are understanding instantly what you're talking about. And they also know instantly that you know your shit. Now, to this email, we would use a different offer, and we would say, I made a routing map. I made a routing map that this other company used to tighten controls fast. You can grab it here. So in this case, it's a routing map, and in the first email, we were talking about a configuration they used that saved them 20 hours a week. And so it's some
Mm.
kind of a checklist, cheat sheets. You can come up with all kinds of stuff.
Okay. See, I like this breakdown, man. I think this was super valuable for the listeners out there because I do think cold outreach is still valuable. I think founders in their beginning stages who are still doing customer discovery have to implement something like this because when you talk to 100 customers about your product, it just opens up a lot of different perspectives and things you've never thought of as a founder. Jasper, this was super helpful. Can founders reach out to you to get more in-depth insight and information?
Yeah, absolutely. You just visit foundersgtm.com, and then you arrive on my Substack with a lot of resources. I share a lot of resources for free there. Just hit subscribe and you will get a go-to-market starter asset, of which, for instance, an email playbook that led to similar results, which I also wanted to add to this playbook. I was just explaining to you that there was a small campaign. We are at about like 315 leads. We just got 8 replies. That is 2.5%. And at first sight, it may sound like kind of a poor campaign. But the cool thing about this is that actually we were able to generate 55K, which was a lot, $55K in pipeline, which was a lot for his company. the whole realization we had was most of those leads, of those opportunity actually, they came from the ones that didn't reply to the email. They came from the ones that were interacting with the landing page that we could track, and we did a manual follow-up based on those people's behavior. And that's where we got the most pipeline of, not so much from those replies. That was the breakthrough.
Man, that is incredible. Founders, make sure you reach out to Jasper. This guy has some systems in place. It's actually working. Jasper, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Later.